Okay. Is this working better? Is microphone working? Anyone? Anyone at all? How interesting. This is on. This is on. Okay. Yeah. And I can't tell if the microphone is working. All right, folks. I'm sorry about the previous effort. Okay, there's one person watching. Please tell me in the comments if you can hear me. I will explain why that's important in a moment. Yes, no, maybe. Okay. Oh, I'll go through it anyway. Audio Ramsey, is the microphone? Okay, you can hear me. Excellent. All right. So I would want to explain a couple of things. One is why I sort of vanished from YouTube for a couple of weeks. And another one is some plans for the channel. And hopefully I'll be able to post it as a normal video at the end of this. I went on a work trip and my computer bag fell out of a moving car with very predictable results. Interestingly, the bag made by a company called Kodiak Leather got some battle scars, but works fine. But my new $3,500 computer that I bought for editing videos, well, let's just say there was some unnecessary pain and suffering, and it's back at Lenovo. Hope they'll be able to salvage the hard drive. And I had a bunch of videos I was planning to edit that were on that computer. Hope they'll be able to salvage them. If not, I will re-record. My work computer that I'm recording this off of was also in a bag, and this one is now bent. So it kind of works, but not too much. I can't edit anything, but I'm hoping that I can do the live stream, and at least there are a couple of videos I can do in the meantime. My new camera that I bought for this was also in a bag. The camera is okay, but the lens now has some extra features like I don't know if you can see it well. The bayonet mount is broken. So I got a new lens. I received it today. So I can try to record some videos. I bought myself Fuji X-T4, got a different lens. So hopefully I'll be able to record some videos, but until I have a better computer, I can't edit them. So this kind of a live thing is the only thing I can do since it goes to the cloud. So there's that. My apologies. Hopefully the videos I had recorded will be salvaged and I'll be able to do more. Now, this sort of unintended pause kind of gave me a little time to think and see what I want to do with this channel. It's been growing lately and I like where it's going and I really enjoy doing these things. So I want to be kind of clear with the direction of the channel. One thing that happened a few days ago, YouTube opened me up to offer memberships. I think YouTube is trying to get Patreon out of business. So they are allowing some people who do long form things, kind of like what I do. They're allowing them to offer memberships in multiple tiers and offer perks for membership and all that. And people pay a little bit each month. And I get, I think 70% of it. YouTube gets 30%. And their plan is to allow content creators like myself to support ourselves in some way, shape, or form using membership. And after some reflection, I decided that I like the idea. What happens now is that for people like me who write articles about product reviews and things like that and make videos, the only income we can get out of this is through advertising. I have some advertising on my website, or through posting affiliate links, which I also do, where if you use one of them and buy a product, I make a small percentage. And that kind of works. Thank you, Ramsey. This thing kind of works, but I like the idea, as Ramsey says, straightforward, honest reviews. I like the idea of continuing with straightforward, honest reviews. And people who have been following me for a while know what I do. But for people who are new to my channel, they always suspect that I'm doing, that I recommend nicer scopes, because if they buy one, I make a larger cut. And that's unfortunately how it works, right? If you buy $2,000 scopes, my affiliate fee is higher than if you buy a $200 scope. And that has always made me a little bit uncomfortable. I don't mind doing some sort of affiliate marketing, but I have to work quite hard to maintain sort of my independence. And I don't particularly enjoy having to convince people that I'm independent all the time. If I can, and I'll find a way to offer some perks, either discounts, Dark Lord of Optics gear. I'm working on that sort of stuff out. If I could convince enough people to become members, then I can cut down on the whole affiliate marketing stuff, and that will make it much easier for me to be independent. So I'm thinking through the tiers right now. If you guys, if you have an idea what kind of perks you think would work, something would make you interested in becoming members on the Dark Lord of Optics channel, please post in the comments or in the chat. I appreciate any input you can have. I'm probably going to do 3 tiers. And there are multiple things that I can try to do. I can do content for members only, though kind of have to be careful with that. I can spend a specific amount of time answering your specific questions. I can do members only Q&As and live streams and stuff like that. Like I said, I can offer some, Dark Lord of Optics branded merchandise. But I think what will make the most difference is if I can get some manufacturers to provide discounts to the members on the Dark Lord of Optics channel in a way that I don't get a kickback. I make money whether you buy anything or not. Makes no financial difference for me, and I kind of like that idea. I don't know if it's financially viable, but all this video editing and stuff and creating videos takes a lot of time and effort, and I need to find a way to make this financially viable, because I'm worried that I need my day job to live, but I spend all this and it's affecting my day job. So I need to find the right balance. In terms of the types of videos I'm looking to do once I am back up with the camera and a computer and stuff like that, I'm looking to try to upload about 1 video a week. I think that's a reasonable pace. And what I need to decide what kind of videos. At least one of them needs to be a scope review. My reviews take a lot of time. I spend a lot of time with a scope before I'm willing to publish a final review. But stuff comes and goes all the time. So, well, how adult of a content do you want, Joe? You will never see me nude if that's your concern. So I did one political video, and I really enjoyed doing it. I got some flack for it, which is as you'd expect. But I'm thinking maybe once a month, once every couple of months, I'll do something on politics that occupies me at the moment. Try to do at least once a month a fairly thorough review of something. As new stuff comes in and out, I can do first look type things. They'll be a little bit more frequent. And I need to get back and do some more educational videos on what different things mean, how different optical devices work, and stuff like that. So one full review, one first look, one educational, and one whatever occupies me outside of optics today. I think that will be reasonable. Anyhow, so what do you guys think? If you want to add something to the chat, I'll be happy to address it. By and large, that's kind of all I wanted to say. I wanted questions you want to ask now, and anything that any of the other reviews I've done, anything I've covered in the past, or suggestions, use the chat room, and I'll hang around for a little bit longer, whatever I can answer. Okay. All right. As far as blankly stare at the camera, as far as the upcoming reviews, just to give you an idea, and that is the Revit P a little bit. It's a kind of, it has an integrated ballistic computer and stuff. It's not the simplest scope. I like these kind of electro-optic, integrated. The full review is going to take me all time. I'm fairly soon. Optically, but what makes the scope interesting is the, and that is not so easily or quick. Probably follow up on this like a pialistic reticle I like, and I like the idea of looking at another sample of a new scope so that I can see how it is optically and mechanically. And so far, it's optically and mechanically, it's extremely similar to the first one I saw, which is a good thing. Oh, thank you, Joe. Oh, Ramsey. So I am talking to a couple of scope companies that I like, and that in addition, that can sell products directly to see what kind of content they can offer. I'm also talking to a company that makes holsters. I use the holsters, I like them. And I am thinking of see if I can convince them to offer a discount to people who subscribe to my channel. A lot of rifle scopes and stuff are not sold directly. They sold through retailers, SWFA that I'm very friendly with, and Cameraland, Liberty Optics, stuff like that. First, I'm talking to a couple of companies that sell optics directly, but if this works, I will also pick this up and talk to maybe some of the large retailers and see if they want to play ball. Honestly, right now, convincing anyone may take a little effort because the gun world is booming. Guns and ammo and all that sort of stuff is just flying off the shelves. This is people who are making guns and ammo right now are basically printing money. But the corollary effect of that is that the accessories, rifle scopes, mounts, and all that sort of stuff are also quite in demand. Not as high of a demand, but quite in demand. So the people who sell them are probably doing fairly well right now. So convincing them to offer an additional discount will take some talking, but I will most certainly give it a shot. And for those of you who are willing to subscribe and become channel members, I will try to make it worth your while. But as I said, the idea I want to try is to stay completely financially independent of whether you buy a product that I recommend or don't. I think that will make a big difference from independence. But like I said, it depends. If enough people sign up and pay a little bit, and I make enough income out of it, then I'm golden. I don't have any grandiose plans. If not, I'll have to rethink it again, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll finally break down and start a scope company. Who knows? Anyway, what else am I looking at? So I've talked about this scope a fair bit, and I should be finishing a review fairly soon. This is Delta Striker 1-6x24, one of the LPVOs that I recommend, and I'll do a review on that. One of the things that is on my broken computer is a nearly finished comparison review of a Vortex Razor Gen 3 and Schmidt & Bender PM2 128x24 dual CC. So that was supposed to be my next long form video. It was somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes, very content rich with through the scope videos and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know if I need to redo all of that or if Lenovo will be able to salvage the videos that are on my computer. I see a couple of new people joined. So to rehash, my computer bag fell out of a moving car, destroyed my computer, nearly destroyed my camera, and there's a bunch of footage that I was not smart enough to back up. So I'm waiting to see if that can be restored. As far good question, Oren. So demand inelastic. It's not such a simple thing, but the gun demand is very cyclical. And it honestly, the biggest driver for that is politics. Up until now, the greatest gun salesman of all time was Barack Obama. He came to the office and decided, he made some efforts to ban everything. And American gun owners basically went, oh shit, and started buying stuff. So Obama years were good for gun manufacturers. When Trump got elected and American gun owning public, which tends to be on the right or center right or very right, has kind of settled down and decided, you know what, this guy's not going to try to ban everything. Gun demand went down substantially. A bunch of gun companies that ramped up ended up with a lot of inventory. There were a lot of good deals to be had. Earlier this year, when our friends in Minnesota, Los Angeles, New York, Portland, Seattle, basically Antifa, BLM, and other communist thugs that I've talked a little bit about, it's almost... Good question, Joe. Good answer, Joe. It's almost like they decided to prove to Obama that they can sell more guns than he can. In the last, since I think February, now we're in the beginning of August. So in the last 6 months, close to 70 million guns was sold in America. Before that was about 300 million. And as Joe has correctly pointed out, a lot of those are new buyers, right? So all the people who, I lived in California for almost 30 years before moving to New Mexico. All the people who thought that I was a complete psychopath are now calling me, asking me what gun to get and where to get it. And since gun stores are kind of empty, once they figure out they can't buy anything right now, they call me back and ask me if they can borrow one of mine, and to which I politely say no. They're mine and they can't have them. Joe, you are partially correct. I see a ton of people hoarding guns who have quite a lot of guns, way more than 2. And they are panic buying just as well as the new owners. If I were to make a guess, and this is not a very educated guess, but I do talk to a lot of people on both sides, both people who make and sell guns and people who buy guns, I'd say that with handguns, most of the demand is for people who are new to guns. But with a lot of rifle stuff, there's a lot of demand from people who are simply panic purchasing things that they believe they might not be able to buy if Biden gets elected. They're not so much correct. Yes, this is very elastic. They don't do it all the time. Okay, Joe, thus. Correct, yes. More than a couple, though. What happens is that gun loonies, me included, tend to be fairly specific about a lot of things. Once you have a couple of handguns and a couple of rifles and a couple of shotguns, after that, it's kind of just a leisure thing. Unless you think that the Democrats are going to come to an office and you will never be able to buy an AR-15 again, then you go buy a couple more. So there is still some cyclical stuff to it. There's a cycle. But aside from political pressure, yeah, it's basically hobbyists. But right now, the market is driven by people who would have never bought a gun before, who are scared shitless because they see the riots, see the violence, and see the looting, and they become very, very concerned. Okay. So it's kind of a long-winded answer, but that's the best I can come up with. Oh, interesting does not even begin to describe it. What is also really interesting is that which product is purchased first matters, right? The first products to get huge demand are moderately inexpensive or moderately priced semi-automatic handguns and rifles, and the ammo for them. So, for example, Glocks and Springfield XDs and all that sort of stuff, they just disappeared, like they never existed. And there was a huge run on 9mm ammo, 45, 9mm more so, 380 auto to a certain degree, and 556 for AR-15s, right? So the defensive guns and ammo are basically the first to be completely bought out. After that, people who still want to buy something start getting something a little bit less common. For example, I know in California, I had a few people who decided they need to become gun owners, couldn't find a 9mm. So first 9mm guns disappeared, then 40 Smith & Wesson disappeared, 45 disappeared, a few remaining 357 SIGs. Some revolvers are interestingly are available, which kind of tells you that a lot of this gun buying public is not terribly educated on firearms, because revolver is actually a pretty decent firearm for a new gun owner, but there's still some. Okay. The next stage of this cycle is people who have purchased guns and they have purchased ammo. Then they start accessorizing, adding magazines, adding optics, adding various features. And that wave is kind of starting now. And I think we will see the peak of that later in the year. I think people are making purchases to make themselves feel comfortable, and they can't buy a gun right now, so they'll start buying some gun-related things. At least I think they will, and we'll see how it goes. Okay. So, Oren, are you an economist or what? The phrase "very interesting demand curve" is kind of slightly academic. I don't think I've addictive and expensive hobby. Yeah, that's for sure. I think the last time I heard the phrase interesting demand curve was more than a decade ago when I was wrapping up at business school. But a few years ago, I went and tried to calculate approximately how much money, in the last 20 some years I've been doing this, I spent on guns and ammo. What do you do for a living, Oren? Oh, before XI, excellent. One of my favorite scopes. When Steiner decided to phase it out, and Doug at Cameraland was selling them for $800, $850, something like that. That was an absolute steal. That's kind of interesting thing, you know. Since you brought up the Steiner P4XI 4-16, that scope was. Oren, what kind of systems? So P4 XI 4-16, that scopes to me was mystifying. I looked at it a while back. It's a kick-ass design, great in low light, well optimized. It's a little big, but you know, not terribly heavy, very usable reticle. Huh. I used to be in LA, or I moved to New Mexico. But anyhow, P4 XI, and the scope did not do great for Steiner. I was shocked. It was such a nice design, but the specs did not look super advanced. And the scope just didn't do well for Steiner, despite being very, very good. But it was designed to be $1,600 scopes, and I thought it was very competitive in that price range. So when it dropped to $800, I recommended it to everyone, and nobody, not a single person, has yet come back to me and said that they regretted buying this. So, Mr. Schnicken, good choice. Oren, Beverly Glen, I've spent a lot of time there. I still have a house in Woodland Hills in San Fernando Valley. Interestingly, I destroyed my computer while driving to Los Angeles. Oh, good. Which Tango 6 did you get, Oren? The Tango 6 that I spent a lot of time with from Gen 1 was 3-18, and from Gen 2 was 4-24. That's another scope that I think 3-18 by 44. Yeah, that's a nice scope. The Tango 6 is another very underappreciated design. There are a lot of things Sig did correctly with that one. The turrets are decent. The optical quality is quite good. Reticles are good. But what they did slightly screw up on was the weight on the Gen 2 models. If it's a long scope, Oren, that means yours is a Gen 1. I actually like that one more than the Gen 2. That same scope has it's a Light Optics Works made scope. Now it was reintroduced by Trijicon as one of their, I believe, 10-mile scopes with their own reticle. And I'm glad to see it back. There is a thing with rifle scopes, is trying to make them short is tricky, really tricky actually. And it requires pretty good design. Sig pulled it off well with the Gen 2, but the compromise was the weight. The Gen 1, although it was less short, it was long, it was actually lighter. And in some ways, it was optically a better correct design. Credo? Is it Credo 10 mile? So Trijicon 3-18 by 44. You know what? Let me look. It may be Credo. Trijicon 3-18. Trijicon rebrand stuff in a way that confuses the hell out of me. There you go. No, it's a 10 mile. Yeah, the standard P4XI on a semi-auto looks weird, but it works really, really well. Okay, let's see. I am on Trijicon website. Yeah, Trijicon 10 mile, 3-18 by 44 long range rifle scope. That's effectively a reincarnation of your Gen 1 Sig Tango 6. And but one of the things that Trijicon did correctly with this guy is that they put in their very nice 3 reticle in this one. It's a very respectable 3 reticle. I've only seen that scope very briefly. So, okay, hold on a sec. Okay, I've only seen that scope very briefly, but I like that reticle in that scope. Once again, if you are planning to put a You're talking about Credo versus Credo HX? I think that's just marketing. Honestly, it's like there are a lot of it's a nice way of saying this. A lot of traditional legacy scope companies. Yeah, Trijicon versus Holosun. Okay, I'll talk about that in a moment. So let me finish with Oren's question real quick. So Trijicon does this thing also. They like to have a lot of SKUs, a lot of models, so that when you search for Trijicon or search for Credo or whatever else at the website or in a store, you see a lot of different models. And they like doing this kind of stuff. It gives them a lot of visibility. I am not convinced there's any practical difference between, let's say, Credo and Credo HX if you're looking at the same basic model, or 10 mile and 10 mile HX in terms of build quality and stuff like that. Some of the models are different. I think HX is the hunting thing, so there's probably more second focal plane and stuff like that. Yes, or in 10 mile HX is they attempt to do a little bit more of a hunting thing. So I think these are mostly second focal plane scope, although they might be different reticles. I know the 5-25, I looked at that one, was second focal plane, but the 3-18x44, I'm not sure. Hold on. Let me see. Okay. So the 10 mile HX seems to be the same exact thing, except with the MOA reticle instead of mil red. So no, it's not a cap turret. These are all adjustable turrets. H usually stands for hunting, so it's probably either different reticles on second focal plane or MOA-based reticles. There is this conviction among many companies that hunters cannot figure out how to do milliradian, and they do MOA. Go figure. Anyhow, Mr. Fu Schnicken, Trijicon versus Holosun, the new. So I went and looked at the patent, and I talked to a buddy of mine who understands patents better than I do. There are a couple of claims in there. So generally, Trijicon and Holosun. Trijicon, I like the products by both companies. I don't like the people I have met from both companies. So there's no love lost between me and Trijicon or me and Holosun. But I'm kind of small fish, so they don't particularly care what I think about them, and I'm good with that. But I generally like the products. I think both of them are basically a bunch of arrogant jackasses. And Holosun is also kind of a litigious company. They have some patents on solar power red dot sites, and they are not at all shy about threatening people. Holosun is a brand of a larger semiconductor company. So generally, they don't copy stuff too much. They do their own LEDs, they do their own lasers. It's a larger company than it appears if you just look at red dot. They are quite successful, and they differentiate themselves from many other Chinese products by generally better quality, a better battery life, better emitters, decent optics, and all sort of stuff. Some of the claims that Trijicon is making in the lawsuit are very, very broad. And they are kind of funny, because if that claim is allowed to stand, then 90% of all red dot sites out there are infringing on Trijicon. And it won't let stand, because any marginally competent lawyer will pull out a ton of competing red dot sites that were on the market before Trijicon ever thought of them. And before Trijicon ever thought of them, and that's just not going to stand. Okay. Huh? Joe? Daddy? Did I say anything about daddy? Are you struggling with a Russian accent, man? I thought you'd be used to it by now. But anyhow, so back to Trijicon and Holosun. There's another claim in there that basically zeroes in on the use of a one of the buttons on the side. I have two buttons on the side to switch between the manual intensity adjustment, and automatic intensity adjustment. Oh, Holosun. I don't remember the name. I think there are two companies. There is SAM Semiconductor Company and something like that. It's not anybody you'd necessarily know, but you can look all this stuff up. But that's the reason why the LEDs are good and they make their illuminators and lasers. No, they actually make them themselves. These are the kind of semiconductor things they do. But anyhow, so the other claim about switching between modes and all that might stand if the Trijicon lawyers are good enough and they get the right expert witnesses. I have some serious doubts about it because I can think of at least two different red dot sites that do a similar thing. And on top of it, if you start digging into Trijicon's history of red dot sites, before there was an RMR, there was a Trijicon reflex site that was not a Trijicon. It was made for them by Shield in UK. And when Trijicon decided to do them themselves, there have been a lot of rumors that they basically ripped off Shield quite thoroughly, and learned everything they could from Shield, and then just did it themselves. So I'm not in a Trijicon versus Holosun lawsuit. I'm not sympathetic to either party. I hope they bleed each other dry. What can I tell you? Ooh, Ramsey. So the question is the price difference between Delta Striker and March 5 to 42 worth twice the price? Which Delta Striker do you use for F-class? Are you using 5 to 50 by 56? That's probably it. For F-class, it's probably the second focal plane. Yeah, 5 to 50. I have one of those. I like it a lot. So the new March 5 to 42 by 56 is a front focal plane scope. So it's not. It can be used for F-class. I designed a couple of reticles for it. They should work fine. But it's really not intended. It can be used for F-class, but it's intended as a long-range precision scope that can do a little bit of everything: F-class, ELR, PRS, and a ton of different things. If you look at March scopes to do F-class, you should be looking at the second focal plane March high master scope, the 10 to 60 by 56, something like that. For F-class, that's probably going to be better than all of them. Both the 5 to 42, and I'll answer your question in a moment, Oren. Both 5 to 42 and a 10 to 60 March scopes, they are substantially better than the Delta Striker. Whether they justify twice the price is really up to you. If you can afford it, I don't think you will regret it. You'll see through mirage and other terrible environmental conditions better with a March. But on the other hand, if you're not at the top of wherever you compete, it may not make a whole lot of difference. But if you're trying to eke out just a little bit of a performance edge over your competitors, get the March. Okay, the next question had after Ramsey was from Dan Bruce on tracked 34mm versus the Striker. So I still need to look at the tracked. I saw the prototype at SHOT Show, looked quite good. They had a good reticle. Mechanically, it's more or less the same thing as the Striker, the 4.5 to 30 by 56. Optically, it's likely to be slightly different because tracked source makes the OEM source the lenses from a slightly different place. How much of a difference is going to be there is very difficult for me to say. Dan, are you in the US or are you in Europe? While I wait for Dan to answer the question, I will pull out, where is it? So I have still the slightly older Delta Striker here. that I sort of use as my reference standard for a lot of optics in the under $2,000 range. I do a lot of comparisons with this, and I gotta say, Delta did a good thing with these. They are well made. Optics are good. Sorry, it's track. I need to look at attract. And right now, basically, so Delta is getting into the US and doing a good job of it. But in terms of warranty support and all that sort of stuff, it has to go back to Europe and all that. I'll get to that in a second, Joe. Yeah, where was I? Yeah. So warranty support for Delta in US is not as good as tracked. So if you're in Europe, I'd probably lean toward Delta. I mean, it's a good company, good people, good support. If you are in the US, Tract has a lot to offer. It's a small company, but they are, US based. The guys behind it are very capable. Customer support is very good. My basic assumption is it is a very similar scope in terms of what optomechanical quality, and until I look at the Tract, I can't tell otherwise. But support matters. So in the US, I'd probably lean toward Tract. In Europe, I'd probably lean toward Delta. Let's see, Joe. So China shot glass. I don't know where their shot glass comes from, but if it comes from China, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I remember I looked into this a few years ago, and some of the best glass melts that Shot made were made in China, because there they didn't have to deal with environmental restrictions, and they're able to use some chemical elements that they can't easily use in the US. But Shot has factories in China and in Korea and Europe and US, and they're a good company. It doesn't terribly matter where the glass comes from. To be honest with you, where the raw glass comes from Shot or O'Hara or Kyocera or a bunch of other good quality places, it makes no difference. It makes for good marketing, doesn't really make for any practical difference, as far as I can tell. Now, higher quality glass from Shot is better than the mid-range quality from O'Hara, and vice versa, right? But you can get similar quality glass from O'Hara and Shot, for example, and get similar results. For example, March Highmaster uses O'Hara glass. It's wonderful. So there's no real magic to shot glass, but it's wonderful marketing. Oren, what do I do for a living to pay for these awesome optics? A lot of these that I look at, I borrow from companies and I send them back. What I do for a living, so I run a US division of a small Israeli company that makes optical test equipment, things that measure MTF, and primarily we don't do typical rifle scopes too much, although we've done that, but we do a lot with thermal cameras, targeting payloads and stuff like that. Okay, Mr. Schnicken, I'll get to that in a second. So where was I? Yeah, so I run a small US division of an Israeli company that makes optical things. I'm not terribly well compensated, but a lot of people are Davidovs. No, I know a lot of Davids, and who specifically are talking about, I have no idea. But a lot of optics you see me test, I don't actually own. They send them to me. I spend a reasonable amount of time with them to get an idea of how they perform, and then I send them back. Some I do own, obviously. I am a shooter. I spend a lot of time shooting, so I spend money on glass. All right, next thing, Ramsey. Shooting the Golden Eagle Vortex and just want something a little better. Okay, so Ramsey, if you're in the top 5 wherever you compete with the Golden Eagle, spend the money and get the March. It might give you a little bit of an edge. It might not. I don't know what's holding you back. But if you get a March scope, you know that the scope is not the thing holding you back. They're wonderful. Okay. Fu Schnicken, how do you feel about American Rifle Company M10 Rings and Mount series? Yes, Ad Mount is never in stock, unfortunately. I talked to John. There's some COVID-related things happening. Hopefully, he'll be back online soon enough. I think the M10 rings are a solution looking for a problem. I think that's the best way of saying this. Does it work? Yes, kinda, if everything is in spec. The big advantage of the American Rifle Company's M10 rings is that they're very easy to mount, right? So you have those two arms that kind of come like this and clamp, and there is one screw that goes through, and it's big and beefy, and it all looks cool. So they have an interesting look, and it's only one screw. So they're easy to deal with. However, if the scope tube is very slightly undersized, most likely oversized, now you are creating all sorts of asymmetric pressure on the tube. And on top of it, I don't like those hinges. I think it's just a bad idea. Now, a lot of these are out there and they clearly work, right? So I can think if it's a good idea or bad idea until I'm blue in the face. The product is there, product works. But, you know, from an engineering standpoint, I think a lot of thought went into making it look different, not necessarily making it better. Seeking rings are quite good. I had a couple of sets. I didn't have any issues with them. I honestly use a lot of Burris XTR signature rings because of the inserts. March has new rings made in Europe somewhere that I have a couple of sets I'm playing with, and I'm very impressed. They're very nice. I have on this Revic, what I have here is a March ring. The writing will look weird. They're very, very nicely done, and I like the idea of being able to put an auxiliary red dot. But that's kind of an option. So without the top cover, these are the 30mm March rings. So you can see same general style as the odd mounts and the Seekins and all that. But I kind of like how they work, and so far experimented a little bit, and their return to zero is very, very good. Okay. So yeah, another scope mount that is also it gets a lot of mileage because it looks cool is Spur, but from a mechanical standpoint, it's not a great idea because on the Spur mount the rings are clamped at stuck on a diagonal at a 45-degree angle. So if anything is slightly out of spec, you can run into all sorts of issues because where you're squeezing the tube and the direction in which you're squeezing the scope tube is kind of weird, and you can run into serious issues. The safest way to go with the least tolerance stack up is traditional, good quality, horizontally split rings. Okay. Yeah, integrated level. Yeah, so you're welcome. You're welcome, Fu. So the integrated level, I like integrated levels. I don't think they are a necessity, but I also don't terribly like external levels that are. I don't particularly like external levels that kind of get in the way. With all of the levels that are mounted on a mount or on a scope, etc., the basic issue is that when you are looking through the scope, the way the scope is set up, your eye is relaxed or should be relaxed and adjusted as if you're looking far away, right? So if you set up with the rifle scope, right, then you take it away and you look out, whatever is fairly far away will be in focus if your scope is set up correctly, right? If you have a level in the mount or on the scope, it's very close to you. So if you look at it, you have to shift focus, right? Even if you're looking at your off eye, you can close your primary eye and you use your off eye to look at the level. When you open your right eye, your eye will need to adjust to looking through the scope again. And I don't particularly like this close far transition. And as you get older, I'm in my mid-40s now, so I know I look 18, bald head and all. Hi Max, good of you to chime in. So where was I? Yeah. So I don't like to shift focus from looking through the scope or at something distant to looking at something up close and personal. I have that same Hansel. You're not gonna like what I've got to say. Anyhow, let me finish with the level, right? So it's one of the reasons also why I'm, for a lot of things, I'm a big proponent of either using the reticle for holding for window elevation or window elevation, or for having turrets that are nice enough where I can go completely by feel, right? That's one of the reasons I like zero stop so much, right? I never want to look away from the scope. One of the reasons I'm so interested in scopes like the Revit or the Steiner IFS is that when I rotate the turrets, inside the eyepiece, I see what position the turret is at. One of the things that I've sort of learned the hard way, remember I started shooting fairly late, is that for longer range stuff, once I'm set up, I never ever want to look away from the scope. Okay, so I don't like to look away and look at the turrets. I don't like to lift my head and look at the level. I don't like to do anything that distracts me from being set up and looking through the scope. Okay. All right. What was the next question? Max, yeah, sorry, buddy. I didn't know I was gonna do a live stream either, but I looked and realized how long it's been since I did anything on YouTube. So I just scheduled a live stream and figured I'll do it. And if anybody chimes in, great. And we have a few people. And thank you guys. I really do appreciate it. So Leo, Hansel 3.5 to 26. I have an article on my website from a couple of months ago on Hansel scopes. I don't think it earned me any friends at Hansel. Hansel is a large German company that does all sorts of defense stuff. We do a fair amount of business with them for my day job, not me, the parent company. And you can do really amazing things, but the civilian market is not something they care about. So they design rifle scopes or sighting systems or whatever else for different military tenders. And if it's something that can be sold to civilians, they will also offer it to civilians, but the support is not really there. Now, the distributor in the US, and the only place where you can get them in the US is Optics. I'm friendly with Jason Bainey there, and they're good people, and they support the product as well as they can. But for example, if you want a different reticle, you want something else, Hansel couldn't care less. So in a high-end world right now, Hansel is not a scope I would go for, although fundamentally these are nice scopes. The 3.5 to 26 specifically is a scope I found terribly unimpressive, but there is a little bit of a quirk to it, and the quirk is that the first prototype I saw that scope was shit. Optics were terrible, turrets were terrible. It just sucked. Second prototype I saw was quite a bit better. Then a couple of years ago, I saw a more finished thing at SHOT, and it looked okay. It looked decent. But optically, I'll still take the tangent theta over it. So my basic problem with the Hansel is that they built it for a particular military tender. So they needed magnification. They needed the magnification ratio. All of that makes things hard. And it had to be short because for that military application, they often have a clip-on in front of the scope, so they had to be short. Well, something's got to be compromised for that, and something has been compromised for that. The conscious net scope is not the same. I like the 4 to 16 by 56 Hansel and the 624 by 72. If they still make it optical, I like them more than the 3.5 to 26 by 56. And another thing I did not like about it, once again, it was done that way for a military tender, right? It's not I'm not harping on Hansel. They had a spec they had to build to. They made, yes, Jared, it's a very good analogy. Hansel is kind of like the HK of the optics world. They made the turret to have 18 milliradians of adjustment per turn. And it's a good sized turret, but still, it's 180 clicks per turn with 0.1 milliradian steps, right? The steps are really close together. It's a good turret that tracks. I don't like the feel. I tried. I can't run that turret convincingly without looking at it. And going back to what I said a little while ago, I like to look through the scope, and I do not like to be distracted from it. I don't want to look at the turret. So the 3.5 to 26 by 56 Hansel, it's a tank. It's built well. It's a good scope. It's not my thing, right? If you ask me what high-end scope or what's available right now I like the most, it's still the Tangent Theta 5 to 25 by 56. Although a couple new March scopes, might make me rethink that once I spend some time with the production models. So that's, it's kind of a long answer on Hansel. So now, Jared, yeah, HK makes great guns, but like many German companies, they have no reporting of no understanding of any sort of the civilian market, because in Europe, civilian market for guns like this, optics like this, is comparatively limited. And yes, it's a pretty big market. And HK doesn't get it and doesn't understand it. You're welcome, Leo. HK doesn't get it, doesn't understand it, and that is also the situation with Hansel. Do they make good stuff? Yeah. No, I've never spent too much on a gun and had to wait on glass. I have a lot more rifle scopes than I have guns, and I have a lot of guns. So Jared, will you be headed back to SHOT Show in 2021? Yes. If the SHOT Show happens, I will most definitely be there. I will sort of announce. I'll try to. Last year was horrible. Horrible. It was good and bad at the same time. Last year, what happened? I started writing for Guns and Ammo, among other things. I write for Guns and Ammo's special interest publications, the book of the AR-15, Retro, Precision Rifle Shooter, all of those. So I had a couple of things I needed to do for them, and between the stuff I usually do, I mismanaged my time at SHOT completely. So in 2021, I'm going to partner with a few people like the Mr. Slav Guns, who's posting here in the chat. So we're talking behind the scenes. There are a few other guys. NBC mask? What the hell is an NBC mask? So Slav Guns and I and a few other people, we will try to go together, make some footage, try to do more stuff from the show. And I also want to carve out half a day to just go and meet people. This is one of the reasons SHOT Show takes so much time and energy from me, is that a lot of people from other sides of the country I only see at the show. Nuclear, biological, chemical mask. Why should I wear that? What, you don't think I look scary enough as is? See, when you first said NBC mask, I thought about that left-wing media channel, NBC. I'd probably rather wear the nuclear, biological, chemical mask. But anyhow, where was I? Yeah, SHOT Show. So I want to carve out a reasonable amount of time to go meet people. And what I will do is I tried this last year and it worked. I will allocate time at a couple of rifle scope company booths. Like last year, I spent a little time at March and to meet people, and I met a couple of people at the Vortex booth and a few others. The booth where I generally spend a fair amount of time anyway. I'm going to try to set a couple of places where I'll tell people where I am, and if you want to come and meet face to face, I will be happy to shake your hand, even with the Wuhan flu and all that sort of stuff. That's what hand sanitizer is for. My basic take on this virus is that, yeah, it's reasonably dangerous. I'm not quite old enough for that to be terribly dangerous, but there's always a risk. It's not a good enough reason to stop your life. So I'm planning to make reasonable precautions and live my life as I live it. All right, I had another question. Mr. Random, what is my opinion on Schmidt-Bender 3 to 20 ultra short in 2020? Are there alternatives to look at? Yeah, it is a nice scope. I like Schmidt's grid radical GR2 ID or squared or whatever. Holographics, I'll get to that in a moment. So the Schmidt is still competitive, is still good. Right now, the best of this type of scopes that I've seen is a zero compromise 4-20 by 50. I think optically it's a little bit better than Schmidt. Mechanically, both are very good. Schmidt is still very, very good. There are a couple of things with Schmidt that I don't like too much. And one of them is that where they put the illumination. I prefer it in a more conventional way. If you want the best in that market right now, zero compromise. But if, for example, you happen to like one of the Schmidt reticles, go with that. A reticle, there's not that much difference between them. Zero compromise is better, but not enough better if you don't like the reticles, right? March has a 4.5-28 by 52 scope coming out. That's in the same general size range, around 30 ounces. The prototype looked very good. So that might put some pressure on the Schmidt and zero compromise, but until I see a production scope and test it, I don't know for sure. Okay. Virgil, have you had a chance to look at Burris XTR3 yet? I've looked at it a little bit, not too much. I was kind of hoping to see the illuminated reticle version. And illuminated reticle version. You're welcome, Random. Illuminated reticle version before I do a full test. And I'm talking to some sort of friendly with the guys at Burris and Steiner. So I'm trying to figure out when that will be available. If it takes too long, I might look at the non-illuminated one, but I would really prefer to wait. The reticle in the XTR3 is fairly thin. In front focal plane scopes, I really like to have illumination for better reticle visibility on low power. Okay. All right. The next question was Slav Guns. As of a few days, the SHOT Show is still on. Yeah, as of right now, it's still on. And honestly, since SHOT Show is after the election in November, I suspect it's going to be on. Somehow, mysteriously, everybody is going to decide on a day after the election that the virus is not that contagious anymore. This whole thing is kind of preposterous, right? Everybody's lost their minds. Coronavirus is not really a medical crisis. It's mostly a crisis of stupidity and fear-mongering. They take a situation that you don't want to ignore and blow it up into something that it is clearly not. Anyhow, DD Yoder. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your handle. EOTech still king over Huey Gen 2. So I have a Huey Gen 2 coming my way, but I still have a Gen 1. I still use it. This is a very, very early one. For my purposes, I prefer the Vortex Huey over the EOTech, although both are very good sites. And the reason I prefer the Huey over the EOTech is very simple. Huey looks bulkier, but in terms of the, excuse me, my nose itches. In terms of the actual size, they're very similar. They are both fast. They both seem to be reliable. They both work well. I have a little bit of inside knowledge on how EOTechs are built. While they are built well, I think the Huey design-wise, Huey design-wise is probably a more robust design. But both of them have been good. The biggest reason I use the Vortex Huey over the EOTech is that it has a longer battery life. That's basically it. I've used them both. They both work. They're both fast. And Vortex runs on a battery a little bit longer. That's pretty much it. Well, and it costs less, but which doesn't hurt. But the battery life for me is a big deal. And with laser-powered holographic sights, battery is their biggest weakness, and it's something I can't easily discard. Okay, guys, hold on a sec. Sorry about that. I'm back. Huck, my thoughts about the Crimson Trace 3-24 by 56 with Did you order? Yeah, I like the side buttons a little bit more than the rear buttons. I run the Huey a lot with the magnifier, which I happen to have on hand, right? And if you've got this thing like this, the buttons being on the back is not helpful. I can reach them okay when I flip the magnifier to the side, or if I leave a little bit more space between them, which I can't always do. The side-mounted buttons would probably work better for me. Let's see. Crimson Trace. Crimson Trace 3 to 24 by 56. It's a pretty decent scope. So this particular model is marketed by two companies, by Crimson Trace and by Rayton Optics. It's made by a Japanese OEM called JOL, Japan Optics Limited. It used to be Hako. Now I think they have either Taiwanese or Chinese ownership, but they're made in Japan. They look like very decent scopes. My biggest real problem with it is the reticle. So I went and looked at it a little bit. Which one did you ask about? PRS, I think, or PR1, or which reticle are you asking about? Mil PRS. Okay, let me see. I want to make sure that I'm thinking about the right reticle before I crap all over it. Okay. There we go. Which one is this? Pardon me, I'm on the website. The website is a little bit small. So for a first foray into the optics world, I think Crimson Trace has done a very, very good job. But there is a learning curve there. And these guys need to pay a little bit more attention to reticles. The offerings that they had, for now, they're workable, but they are not great. So the reticle I was talking about is called LR1 mil. I think that's the one that Max Slev Guns has. It's not the worst reticle I've ever seen, but it's not great. There is an innumerable number of issues there. Some of the same ones as Horus has, some different ones. Will it work in a pinch? Yeah, you can get used to most anything. Is it a good modern reticle? No. Okay. All right. Yeah, Slavgan, sorry buddy to burst the bubble. I think that's the scope you have. Good scope, reticle needs work. I hope on Gen 2 they'll do better. There are ways to do better. Maybe I should offer my services. I design reticle for a bunch of people. Ramsey, in your opinion, what is the best in front of your scope thermal? You're talking about a clip-on thermal. Honestly, I haven't looked at the clip-ons for a little bit. Good ones are going to cost you a lot. Of the general purpose thermal rifle scopes, the best I've seen lately of what's available to the consumer, and keep in mind, so these are the things I work with for my day job. So I see a lot of things that you guys don't, and my standards are very, very high. I am going to publish a review on the N-Vision Halo LR, a thermal rifle scope. And as far as standalone thermal rifle scopes go, under 10 grand, I think that's the best. Really, really like it. Although Trijicon's line that they bought, this company used to be called IR Hunter, Trijicon's line is also very good, and Trijicon's clip-on is also quite nice, but I think it's overpriced. There is another company that's going to make a reappearance in the thermal world. I'll get onto the SWFA in a moment. There'll be a few new entries into the thermal world that will make a difference, I think. A lot of the less expensive thermal scopes that are getting a lot of attention right now, the ATNs, the Pulsars, and all those, I'm not a fan. They work, they've gotten better, and they have some problems. One of the things I don't like is a lot of these Chinese-made scopes, although many of them are not designed in China, but they're Chinese-made scopes. A lot of these are made by engineers who don't shoot. So their target market is not serious shooters. Their target market is basically mall ninjas. And if you have one of those, forgive me if I scolded you, but I'm gonna stand by that. They have a million features, everything but in the kitchen sink. Half of that shit doesn't work, and when it does work, it just drains the battery. I want something with solid fundamentals. Armasight was great on fundamentals, right? Then Flia bought it and destroyed it and stuff. And there are a few others here and there. I want the fundamentals to work. So if you're willing to spend the money on the thermal scope, look at N-Vision Halo and Halo LR. Trijicon is good, but overpriced a little bit, as everything Trijicon is. As far as clip-ons go, Trijicon's clip-on is quite good. But I'm just not too familiar with the other commercially available ones. Let's see. Slav guns, agree on reticle, yes. When we meet at SHOT, we'll walk around. I'll show you a couple of reticles that are well designed, some by me. I don't suffer from modesty, false or otherwise. Some designed by other people, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, let's see. Joe, for 2021, pre-shot range day would be good. Yeah, I go to the pre-shot range day, but there's not, there's some good stuff there, but a lot of it is just for people to go pull the trigger. For the in-depth look, that's not quite enough, but it's always a lot of fun. Jared, which consistently gives best value for the money? Is WFA both quite good? In terms of overall value for the money, I gotta say what the guys at SWFA do is just amazing. Their formula is fairly simple. They take a design that make sure it's robust, make sure it's decent optically and good for the money, cut out the middleman so it's a good value, and they make good money. Then they make it for a long time. So it's extremely predictable, and it's very solid. If you're on a budget, it's very, very difficult to recommend something other than a couple of fixed power 10x and 6x SWFA scopes, or 3 to 9 SWFA. Like I keep on saying, I have 2 of those 3 to 9 SWFAs, I think. None of them here, unfortunately, at least not that I can see. But I do have, for example, SWFA's 2.5 to 10 by 32 ultralight here that I use a lot. And I love that thing. It's a wonderful little scope. SWFA. Oh, Joe, meet and greet, not a shot range day. It's actually not a bad idea. We should talk about that closer to shot. That's not a bad idea. I might do that. Anyhow, if you want a general purpose scope for hunting, for some precision, etc., buy SWFA 3 to 9 by 42. I think they have a shipment coming, so some of them are going to be in stock soon. Buy one from a sample list. Their customer support is wonderful. And just go and shoot. Chances that it will break on you are minimal. There's always a chance, everything can break. Chances that it will break on you are minimal, and it will do everything you want. Is it perfect? No. Does it have all the features? No. But the fundamentals, the basic optomechanical quality is just great. The 12x SWFA fixed power for $300 is very good. Personally, I prefer the 10x a little bit because I tend to shoot in challenging light conditions a little more. 12 power is quite good. 16 and 20 power fixed power SWFA scopes, they're good for the money, but that optical system can't sustain high magnification all that well. I'd stay at 12 and below, unless need some range queen that's for sighting in and stuff like that. For that, then it works great. All of them are really robust. Joe, yeah, meet and greet before shot, not shot range day. It's not a bad idea. If you are gonna be there, we need to find a place and arrange something. I'm all for it. Virgil, do you see digital images becoming an option in the rifle scope market in the near future? Well, they already exist. Generally, it's not CCDs. CCDs, so for background, part of my technical career has been in developing image sensors. For broadcast cameras, movie cameras, weapon sights, some of that stuff is on satellites right now, looking down at. Okay, hold on one moment. Some of the images I worked on are up on satellites, so that's sort of specifically my field of expertise. CCDs are basically dead. There are just a few very specialized ones available. All the image sensors you're thinking of are called what's called CMOS image sensors. Yes, so there are what's called digital night vision rifle scopes. Anything that says digital night vision is not an image intensifier, it's just an image sensor that has good sensitivity. Yes, I think they will grow. I think they will be more of a force to reckon with. But it is the same problem as with an expensive thermal. The people who make these things are skip on some of the fundamentals and focus on the features because features are easy to market. But then the final product for shooters is often not awesome. I haven't looked at them too carefully. I've looked at them a little bit and basically figured they're not ready for prime time. Too much crap, not enough foundation. But the way of the future, yeah, I think we'll see more and more of these. There are advantages to this kind of stuff that are difficult to overlook. And some of the more modern image sensors out there can enable this stuff better than. Yes, ATN is a great example of it. Exactly. I looked at ATN X site, modern ones. Good idea, bad execution, and I skipped over the fundamentals. So, but I know other people are looking at it, other companies are looking at it, so we should be seeing some better products in a not too distant future. And if I don't see something within a year or two that I like, I'll make one. Not difficult, I know how to do it. I know people who can do it with me. My optical company that I work for, my day job, doesn't make this kind of stuff. We make test equipment, but I know other people who do these kind of things. So, on the other hand, what brands of scopes is not consistently worth the money that they charge? Schmidt and Bender Night Force. So that it's not such a simple. It's not such a simple question, Jared, because all of these companies have different product lines, and I like some and I don't like others. For example, with Night Force, so the people at Night Force, if you ever hear that I disappeared and my body was found riddled by bullets in the middle of the desert, check on what Night Force and Colors people were doing at that time, right? They hate me with a passion. But for me, it's not personal. Night Force, some of the Night Force scopes I don't like, some I like. I like the attackers. I think they are very competitive in their price range. I don't like NX8. I'm not a big fan of SHV. So it's not about consistent overprice. You kind of have to go product line by product line. Schmidt and Bender's for a while were very overpriced, but I think that's changed a little bit. I think they got beat up by the market, and a lot of the stuff I've been seeing from them lately has been good. Honestly, right now in the precision world, I think the Collis is probably very overpriced. K525 and K318, I think they're good mechanically, but optically, I don't think they're as good as the competition. At least the samples that I've seen. 218 is better. 5-25 Collis, I looked at a few now and I just wasn't impressed. Mechanically, very nice. Optically, they need to be better. That's probably the most overpriced precision scope right now that I've seen. People love them, more power to them. There's a lot to like there mechanically, but optically, I was surprised when I saw that scope. Lower end VX3 and type Leopolds, I think, are very overpriced. It's the old designs that Leopolds kind of milking, but the new stuff, the VX5s and Mark 5s, I think they're good for the money. So it's not like there's one brand that's just overpriced. Okay. Sorry if that's not a very clear answer, but Jared, but that's the best. I think that's the best that I can do. All right, in a few minutes I need to go put my kids to sleep. So if you guys have other questions, now's the time. I'm gonna hang out for a few more minutes. I'll answer whatever else you have. And then I'll end the stream, and this will go up as a video on my channel. And if this is something you guys like, I can do this with reasonable regularity, and I'll be happy to answer questions. All right. So let me look through the chat room, make sure I didn't miss anything that I needed to answer. And then if there are no new questions, I'm gonna bid you good night. Okay. So far, so good. Okay. Okay. Fushniken, what do I think about Platinum Arms 1 to 8? Primary Arms Platinum 1 to 8. It's a pretty good scope. I'm not as big on ACSS reticle as a lot of people are. I think there's a lot of stuff there that kind of, once again, makes for good marketing, but it's totally unnecessary. The scope itself, it's a nice light optics works scope. It's the same optomechanical design as the now discontinued Burris XTR2. So in terms of the basic structure, it should be a good scope. I've looked at it briefly, but nothing really bad I can say about the scope. The reticle is not my thing, but if the reticle works for you, I wouldn't hesitate. It's the solid basic design is very solid. Oren, that would be great to do this periodically. Yeah, if you guys like it, and we have. I just don't want to chime in and stare at the screen. If you come, listen, and ask questions, I'll be more than happy to. On anything that you've covered, you see me in the videos, I'll do this. How often do you think I should do this? Here's a question for you guys. Once a month, a couple of times a month, or is that too frequent? What do you think would work for you? So I'll let you think about that. I had another question. Colorado's 14, 1,500 total. $500 scope you might recommend for a new shooter. So it kind of depends, right? All right, Slevgun says every 2 weeks. Random says once a quarter. Now we know who wants to hear me talk. Yeah, once every 2 weeks. All right, once, twice a month. I'll do so. Anyhow, so budget scope. Depends on what you want to do. If it's general purpose blinking and hunting and that kind of stuff, where you don't need a ton of magnification, SWFA 329 by 42 for $600 is awesome. Once a week, less frequent is hard to build. Not a bad idea. Maybe I'll do that. If they want more magnification and features, it gets a little bit trickier. Something's going to have to be given up. Of the moderately inexpensive scopes that I've seen lately was, where is it? This guy. So there's a new company called Swamp Fox Optics. They're Chinese-made scopes, but the company is owned by a guy in the US, and they have an office in Colorado that they're developing. This one is Swamp Fox Kentucky Long. There are some things I don't like about that scope, but overall, for $500-600, if you need something with a little more magnification, something from Swamp Fox is worth looking at. If you don't need a lot of magnification, just get something from SWFA. Okay. Jared, at SHOT Show, I noticed that Nightfrog's booth folks don't seem to care much if you visit them. Same with Oakley. Yeah, they were not terribly friendly. But honestly, Nightfrog's people are not friendly to me. I don't know how they are with other people. All right. So on the frequency of the live stream, once a week, once every 2 weeks. Let me see what I can do. Doing it every week will be tricky for me because my work requires some amount of travel, so I'm not always home and available to do this on a regular basis. But 2-3 times a month I can do this. Oh, Mr. Rivers, you bought the 5 to 25 tangent. Good on you. I have that scope. It kicks ass. Absolutely kicks ass. Yeah, Jared, for this live stream, I didn't plan this in advance. I'm just learning this whole YouTube thing and how to do this better. I will try to schedule these out in a better way going forward. Slav Guns question: would you buy a good quality scope at a significant discount knowing company is leaving business? No. The good example of that is Nikon. I didn't like their scopes to start with. Then they were heavily discounted and a bunch of people bought them. Well, I guess it depends what kind of a discount, but basically, if you are willing to forego warranty support, sure, I'm not. So I don't like it when companies leave business. If it's a new company, I'll give them a chance. They might leave, might stay. I want them to succeed if they do something good. If it's an established company like Nikon leaving rifle scopes, I would not touch it with a 10-foot pole. Okay. Let's see. You speak often of reticles, but I'm not sure what your favorites are. Maybe a video topic. So I'm going to be doing an article on that for Guns and Ammo. But I talk about reticles often. I'll see what I can put together on a reticle design, what I like and what I don't like. Oh, Colorado, another S14, another P4XI customer. I'm glad you like that scope. That kicks ass. Jared, most interested in SHOT Show coverage. Yeah, I'll try to do more for SHOT Show 2021. Last year, I brought a guy with me to take some pictures. It wasn't enough. In the next one, 2021, if the show goes on, I'll probably bring a couple of people with me to help me with audio, with videos and photos and stuff like that, so we can get more stuff going in real time. And I'll try to partner with guys like Slav Guns on here and a few others to see if we can do some joint coverage of things. I like the Q&A format. Hey, Brian, I like doing this kind of stuff with people. I like the question and answer format. I need topics that helps me make this relevant. I can bullshit for a long time. It doesn't mean it's relevant. If you ask questions, now it's relevant. Let me see. Paul Nelson, Arkin Optics. I still haven't tested one. They had some supply issues. I looked at them at shot. They looked like good guys. It looked like a decent scope. So, but the theoreticals are quite thin. So like with the Burris XTR3, I want to see that Arkin scope with illumination. Once they have illumination, I'm going to get my hands on one and do a proper review. Virgil. Optica 6 mil red. Thank you. I like the reticle. I think it worked out well. I have that same scope. I'm pretty happy with how it panned out. LR Hansel 6-24 by 72. I've considered getting it. You know, if enough people ask, I'll ask your optics to loan me one. I can probably convince them they're good guys. 6-24 by 72 Hansel is to date the single best low light scope I've seen to date. So definitely worth looking at. Brian, okay, you have an Arkin. Yeah, it looks like a very decent scope, but I'm kind of particular, so I want to see illumination. Jared, AK optics video. Yeah, I think a lot of people who are mounting optics on the AK are doing it wrong. So I think I have a better mousetrap. Kareem, sunshades. So if you're not using a clip-on, leave the sunshade on all the time. If it doesn't get in the way, there is no downside to a sunshade. Almost all rifle scopes optically perform a little bit better with a sunshade on than off. Okay. For some of my scopes, like some of my tangent thetas who are optically excellent, I leave the honeycomb anti-flash device on virtually all the time. It makes the scope a little bit dimmer, but they're so good it doesn't matter very much. Well, it matters. I can see the difference, but it doesn't matter that much. and it doesn't add as much length, and flare control is better, even on something as crazy good as a tangent. Integrated scope cap, no idea. What is that? What is it, Max? What is ISC? Yeah, what exactly are they integrating into the scope cap? I'm doing a search on it. Let's see what it is. Yeah, I'm looking. ISC or internal scope cap. That's the thing on Indiegogo. Is that the one? Okay, that's loading. It looks like that is a scope cap with the adjustable variable aperture, right? There was some sort of crowdfunding thing. Oh, there you go. I see it. Huh. You know what? I don't want to bullshit. I don't want to bullshit, so I'll need to look into it a little more carefully. In principle, this kind of stuff scope is a good idea, but execution can be a problem. I see it as an Indiegogo. I just started. I see V2. Twist open apertures. You know what, Slavgans, I will take a closer look at the design. If I like it, I'm gonna, I do this crowdfunding thing all the time. I'll buy one and I'll take a closer look. The idea in principle is good, but execution can be iffy. So let me take a look. LR. 1 to 8 March shorter was adapted by Japan. Do you think it's still a competitive option at its price? Yeah, I have one of these. I like that scope quite a bit. It's not for everything, but it works well. March is developing a 1 to 10 by 24 front focal plane with side focus in the same basic shorty body. So I think that's going to kick ass. I talked to March guys a fair bit. I like where they're going with this scope. Once I get to see it, if they are okay with me disclosing information, I'll tell you more about it. But yeah, I like that basic design. It has a lot to recommend itself. Brian, Arcan, better picture than colors. Do you remember which colors that was? If it was the Colus K624, 624 by 56, there were 3 generations of that scope, and Gen 1 had issues left, right, and sideways. So if you had a Gen 1 Colus that that had crazy sample variation, it's entirely possible that your Arcan was better. If it was a Gen 3 Colus, that I'd have to see. Okay. Best optics quality: light optics work in Japan, Leica or Zeiss. That's not so simple. Leica makes different level products. Zeiss makes different level products. Light Optics Works makes scopes for everyone, for a bunch of people at different optical level. Out of Japan, the best optical quality is definitely March. Light Optics Works makes very nice stuff, but March is better. With Euroscopes, I think overall the best optical is probably Leica Magnus. At least that's the one I like the most. But I've seen some newer Schmidts. Some Schmidts are wonderful. High-end Zeisses seem very good. The one I saw I didn't like. The Zeiss V8, that's a highest end. I wasn't terribly impressed, but I know a lot of people like them. But Schmidt and Leica Magnus are very good. Like Schmidt Polar, and they're 3 to 12 by 54 ultralight, and 4 to 16 by 56. Not ultralight, ultra bright. Excuse me. They're wonderful. They're very, very good. Some of the higher rector ratio stuff, I know it's very good for what it is, but there are compromises. But the ultra bright scopes are just excellent. I'm very impressed. And like I said, Leica Magnus is just amazing. Probably my favorite hunting scope, second focal plane hunting scope out there. In the US, it varies, but for example, my favorite overall tactical scope is Tangent Theta, which is made in Canada, and I think they're quite remarkable. Schmidt latest design is a 3.5 to 21 by 50 Exos. It's a second focal plane design and all. I think optically it's remarkable. It's probably on a level with Leica Magnus. So those are the ones I like. Doesn't mean others are bad, but these are the ones I think are just superb. Let's see. LR, what scope is living in your fix right now? Yeah, I sold the Voodoo, which was a very, very good scope. So I use the fix to test scopes. So there is a ton of stuff that goes back and forth. When I just want to go and shoot with the fix, I typically, and we're talking about 308 fix, the original fix. I typically have the tangent theta 3 to 15 by 56 on it. On balance, overall, that's still my favorite. If I only had to have one scope, that would be it, right? Huck, who makes a Crimson Trace that you mentioned? JOL, Japan Optics Limited. For $7.99, it's a good price. It's a very solid Japanese scope. $800 is a great deal. I hope I've seen a lot of Crimson Trace scopes on a discount. I'm assuming they're going to go to Gen 2. It will be interesting to see what it is. I think what they had for a first try, it was very, very good. Okay. Brian Marks, what do you think of Gen 2 Razor? For $1,700, it's very good. It's not a new scope. It's been around for a while, so it's kind of had it's proven by fire. Colorado S14, thank you for chiming in, sir. So a Razor Gen 2 at $1,700 is a very good scope. It is competitive with Delta Striker, Athlon Kronos, and all that sort of stuff. Choose the reticle you like. The only real optical weakness for the money that Razor Gen 2 has is that if you crank the elevation all the way to one of the edges, optical quality starts to suffer. But aside from that, very solid design, hard to go wrong with it, and great company supporting it. Let's see, random access to the 21. Yeah, Frank said good words about it, which always helps on the hide. I saw it at shot. I was really impressed. I don't really have the right comparison to do on the Axos, but I'll try to put something together. Maybe I'll look at it next to Magnus, something like that. Max, can I admit that I'm an optics snob? Max, I'm not just an optics snob. I'm a general purpose snob. And thank you. LR, appreciate the insight. Hope you do more of this. Yeah, that's the plan. I'll try to do more of these things, and we'll see what it goes. The question is that if I start the whole membership business, do I do this as an open stream like this one, or do I do this as sort of a perk for members? I really don't know. I'm kind of trying to flesh all this out. I don't know. You guys tell me, what would you like? All right. Anyhow, it's been an hour and 40 minutes, so my throat is about to go. And ooh, I didn't know you could do that. Make it live and then replay for members. It's a good idea. Maybe that's how I'm gonna do it. But anyhow, folks, thank you for chiming in. This has far exceeded my expectations. Good questions. I love this stuff. I enjoy this. LR thinks otherwise. Okay, let me think about it. I enjoy this format much more so than most other things. I like the lecture style format that I do for my videos, but it's very impersonal. This gives me a really good idea. I agree. Exclusive content is a double-edged sword, but I need to figure out how to entice people to sign up for membership, right? Yeah, I enjoy this format. I think I'll do this more. This is a lot of fun for me. Thank you all. Good night. God bless. And I'll schedule something like this in 2 weeks. Let's do this in 2 weeks on Thursday night. Thursday night, good? All right, we'll call it Thursday night. Good night, folks. Thank you for chiming in. Take care. And Brian had to sneak in one last question. No, I have not seen PR2 reticle. I've heard of it. I haven't seen it. I'm gonna Leopold guys like me all of a sudden, so I'm gonna borrow a scope from them with the new reticle and test it. I'll let you know how it goes. Good night, folks.